Welcome all to this tutorial. Today I am going to start talking about backups and recovery. Also, in addition to this, we will talk about compression as well. These things go hand in hand with one another and they combine rather well. First off, you as a system administrator, you will absolutely need to perform backups and recover information from those backups. This is one of your most frequent tasks that you will need to do. And performing backups in Linux is not that hard. It's actually quite easy. There isn't that much to it. The trick is figuring out what to back up, as there can be quite a lot of it. And usually what people do is they schedule automated tasks which perform backups on either daily, weekly, monthly basis, or every so hours or something of a kind. When that backup happens, the old one gets overwritten and lost. In such a way, they manage to preserve space. All of this we will do throughout this chapter, but for the time being, I just want to show you some basic functionalities of tar, which you will need in order to create a backup. And before that, I have, as previously for VIM, created a small file for myself, and I want to show you one command that you can utilize in order to monitor the status of a file. Namely, this is mainly used for the monitoring of log files. The command is tail. So if I type in tail, and if I type in tar text, which is my file, and press enter, what did I get? Pretty much the same thing that I would get if I was to write cat. However, tail does come with a very neat functionality, and if you pass a -f argument and press enter, you will see that the prompt is standing by and waiting. It is monitoring for changes to occur within a file. Let's go ahead and enact some changes and see what happens. Type in echo, and let's type in something here. I have changed you. Changed you. Let's give it an exclamation mark as well. And if you remember from the previous tutorials, greater than sign means append. So we are appending the contents of this file, and the file name is tar. I am currently in the directory where the file is located, but I could have just as easily written here path to the file and then typed in tar text. But at the moment I am working in the same directory, so it is completely unnecessary. I can just write the name of the file like this and save myself a bit of typing. Now watch what happens in the upper terminal when I append this file. Oh, bash event not found. Exclamation mark posing a problem. Hold on. Did I mess it up? This was for my test runs. Okay, let's try did I mess it up? And you see immediately up there it is shown, but I also want to make this this thing work with I have changed you. It is vital to me. I have no idea why, but okay. We're gonna try an escape char and see how that works out. Event not found. Okay. Why aren't you memorizing it? There's something fundamentally wrong with this command, and I am going to find out what it is. Okay, so it is the exclamation mark. Let's type in escape, and we're gonna tell Echo to use escape characters. There we go. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. Come on, don't do this to me. Okay. We're not gonna give up. We're not going to give up. We're gonna be using echo dash dash help space. What do we need? Grep, and then we're gonna go ahead and type in escape. Nothing pops. Okay. Oh right, you cannot use this with echo. I'm terribly sorry. Man echo grep esc. not a bad way to actually pull the information from the man pages. A lot of people don't actually know this, but you can also grep things from the man pages when you issue a man command for anything that you want. You can use grep to figure out what is where. Press enter, and there we go. It is E. Enable interpretation of backslashes escapes. E disable interpretation. Okay, that's by default. And dash E, I suppose that's for escape. Strange that it couldn't be stranger. I love it when things like this happen to me. I'm like a magnet for problems. It is amazing. Now let's give it these, and I'm gonna go ahead like this. Event not found. I hate you so badly. Okay, let's try it the other way around. Event not found because it's escaping. I have honestly no idea why the exclamation mark won't work here. I'm gonna go ahead and check that out for you in the follow-up tutorial, but this is quite interesting. It has intrigued my imagination here. I'm gonna go ahead and figure it out in the next tutorial why it hasn't actually worked out and why you cannot put an exclamation mark at the end. And I suspect it's gonna be something interesting. But in any case, I have shown you how tail works. This is very important for you. It's gonna help you out a ton, especially when monitoring log files. You will type in tail, then space dash f space tar text. Well, so not tar text, you will obviously use your own file. You can specify a path to the file to any file that you want. As long as you have the permissions to actually pull the information out of it, you're good to go. Also, not a bad thing is when you're starting up a program, you see that something is wrong, that it doesn't want to start, it's not giving you any errors, it can be problematic. You go into the log files in var log, and there you find the appropriate log for that particular program. Usually it should be in messages or something of a kind, and then type in tail-f, type messages here most likely, and then see what happens in the moment when you start the program. Just have a look at the message, and then if you can actually figure it, if you can get that message there, then you can go online on the net, or you can even solve it yourself if you just get the error message from there. Anyway, let's go ahead and close this file, stop the monitoring of the file. And the universal pretty much interrupt for Unix Linux-like systems is Control C. I know it can be a bit annoying, primarily because Control V and Control C do not work in the terminal as they work everywhere else as copy and paste. Rather, instead, Control C works as an interrupt. So now that we have that out of the way, let us go ahead and examine this this tar file. Let's maximize the screen. Delete the F because we don't need the live monitoring. Now I have the file modified, but guess what? We can combine what we have learned from the previous tutorials. So just type in clear and and cat -n tar text grep. What shall we? We'll grep 1, and there we go. We indeed have only that part from the file. What I've just written, this command, you should know what it does and what it means by this point of time. I have explained it in great detail in the previous tutorials. Anyway, let's go ahead and focus on the tar, finally, after long last. So you would type in tar, and then space, then dash, minus sign or hyphen, however you wish to call it. The first argument, C, that instructs the tar to create or override the if to create a file if it doesn't exist. If it exists, overwrite it. Or yeah, just write over it. I don't care. I do care, but that's just what you're telling to the computer. If it exists, overwrite it. Next, we have V, and what have we learned that V represents? Well, verbosity, verbose output. You want the computer to be telling you what to do. Although with a lot of backups, since a lot of them are automated tasks, it's probably a good idea to omit the V, just to omit it completely and not have it here. Unless you're doing the manual backup, then you want the V there to actually see what is going on. But if you have a scheduled task that the machine does that you will not see, and most likely you will not even be physically present there when the backup happens, there is no need to waste the resources of the system. You're not wasting a lot, you're wasting a very small portion, but it doesn't matter. It pays to be efficient in every situation. Next up, we have P. P is used to preserve the permissions on files, so you don't have to mess around with it again. We have learned what permissions are, and there's the three sets of permissions for users, groups, and world. Why is this important? Why would you want to preserve the permission file structure? Well, file hierarchy. Well, imagine imagine the following scenario. You are basically performing a backup of a website, and you want to back up the entire site with all the file structure, the whole file structure, everything that is in there. Now, I don't know, there could be like 500, 1,000 folders, files, whatever in there. And imagine if you just compress them and unpack them somewhere and you don't have the permissions set up the way they were set up there. What are you going to do? I mean, you've just restored a backup, and now on top of that, you have to go through every single file and adjust the permissions there once again to match the original permissions, provided of course that you have the original file somewhere, which would be ridiculous. I mean, it would take a ridiculous amount of time. And as you would do this, the chances of you making an error and making your server unsecure by giving a write permission somewhere to some file or execute permission to a wrong file are astronomical. Basically, if there are enough files there, if you need to change like 1,000 files, your chances of making an error are practically 100%. That is why we have the P option to preserve these things. All that you need to do after you have preserved the permissions within a backup file, once you restore it, you just copy it to a folder where you want it, and that's it. The permissions are the same. You don't need to do anything more to it, which is fantastic. Next up, we want to compress it. Now, strictly speaking, this argument is not meant, I mean, this is not one of those mandatory arguments. Neither is P, of course, but it is useful. Now, we are telling Tart that we want the file compressed, so we want smaller file size, which is of extreme importance. And as I said, it always pays to be efficient. You don't have to compress it, of course, but there is no reason why you shouldn't. You're saving disk space. I know that a lot of people say that it's cheap and that it's free or something of a kind, but most of those people generally don't do anything serious that requires large amounts of space on your drives. Sure, 2-3 terabytes are relatively cheap, but try getting 100 or something of a kind and see what happens. Especially if you're making backups of your databases, of your websites, and if you are continuously doing this of a large, large, large database, you can't make two backups. You literally have to make one, and then the one that you made previously has to be overwritten by the new one because you don't have enough space. It's impossible. Or you have another option of buying a ton load of more storage, which in turn costs money to buy and costs money to maintain, and so on and so forth. That is why you should always compress. There is no reason not to. You won't break your files. I know, as I stated previously, I do believe that I have anyway, that in Windows things can go pretty badly when you compress things. I don't know, you can have problems with files, they can get broken, corrupt. Well, not broken, but the files can get corrupt or something of a kind. That does not happen in Linux. To say that doesn't happen at all would be improper of me, but I mean 99% of the time it won't happen, so there is no reason why you shouldn't do it. Anyway, the next argument is F. F simply allows the tar to create a new file on the file system. And now I have written out here for myself two things that you can write here. So this one you do need to write. This is the file where it's going to get compressed. So this is what you are compressing it to. And this is what you are backing up. So destination of what you want to back up. Perhaps I should have renamed them like backing up file and file that destination would be file that gets backed up, and file.tar.gz would be the file where the backup will be stored. You don't necessarily need to give both of these here. You can only give one, the first one, file.tar.gz, but that will mean that it will take your working directory and it will back that up. That is not what we want to do here. What we want to do here is, I don't know, we can back some silly things. I will show you which ones shall we back up, but for the time being, let us first type in the path where we are going to perform the backup. Notice that you can also use here shortcuts for paths. They're pretty much universal. I can use them anywhere. And let's type in backup.tar.gz. Oops, .tar.gz. My fabulous typing. And now we're gonna go ahead and type in tilde once again. Sure, why not? Let's back up the contents of our home directory into our home directory, uh, which generally isn't a practice. You perform backups into another folder. You would store backups into another folder. You would either have a dedicated disk or a dedicated space in the server or something of a kind, but it really doesn't matter. I could have specified pretty much path any path here, and it would back it up to that location, as provided of course that I do have the permissions to write on that location. So let's go ahead and press enter. There you go. You see that everything is being backed up quite literally, and there seems to be a lot of things in my home folder of this user. Tar home random guy file changed as we read it. Excellent. So let's go ahead and type in ls. There we go. We have backup.tar.gz. We have successfully backed up pretty much everything that was within this folder. Notice that we didn't only back up what was directly within the folder, rather instead we have, there we go. So it has went into the home folder of the user, it has picked up this folder here, and then it went into that one, and then it copied this, and then it backed up this, and then it went into this folder, and then it backed up the contents of that folder. So it is recursive. It just goes jumping and jumping and jumping. If you're wondering that why don't we have these .pki folders or these .macromedia folders, generally the folders, the folders that begin with a dot, well, we do. They're just hidden. We haven't listed them. You can use ls-a, and there you go, you can see them. Let me just clear this up for you so you can see it a little bit better. You can use ls space -a to list all, and there you go, you can see pretty much everything that we have backed up in the tarball. Anyway, I bid you all farewell, and we shall see each other in the next tutorial, hopefully.